No, I did not say that word.
Obi,
I did not
you
say that.
wanna?
I'm not a racist. I am from Africa.
Obi, you want to talk or you want to look?
In Islam, we are
There's a fight going on behind you.
What do you guys want to talk about?
Genesis 3:16.
We're not dealing with racism.
Because you said that it was
I don't
impossible.
think it's racist.
Huh?
You said it was impossible to be
We're
good.
not Israelites.
And that we're always going to be
Impossible for a human being to be justified strictly by their own goodness. Just as you believe that you can never do enough good deeds.
You can hear a lot
But
more
Allah
of me on
say,
this
yo, oh wait, by the way, Obi, where's that from?
Say again?
Where's Obi from? Where's that from? Obi.
It's not hot enough.
Where's Obi from?
Oh, okay, it's not your name. That's fine.
Yeah, it's not my name.
Okay, fine. So, in the same way
He was in Star
that you believe, that
It's in Star Wars.
in the same way that you believe that you can never do enough good deeds on your own to be justified before Allah without the inclusion of mercy.
No, but here's the difference, you see.
Okay.
We believe that there are actions that we can do in this world that will be judged. So we are judged on our actions.
No, I said alone. Are you
Oh
judged
yeah,
on your
nothing.
actions
Yeah,
alone?
obviously nothing is. Yeah, it can't be ever alone. You also have to have faith.
Okay, so that's exactly what we believe. But the,
No, you believe in salvation through grace only.
Actually, I found her quite rude.
Well, I don't know. Are you Catholic or what are you?
I'm ecumenical.
Oh.
You cannot have so basically you cannot accept Jesus Christ one time and carry on being of the world and sinning and go to heaven. You can't do that.
I don't know. I'm just saying that's what a lot of Christians say, and that's kind of what Paul indicates.
I think that is misguided. Okay,
That's fine.
So
you believe in salvation through works and grace.
So first is grace, right?
Okay.
So, but like in steps, you accept Christ. You sound you've heard this before. You accept Christ, right? You're born again when you're baptized,
Right.
and you receive the Spirit.
Okay.
Okay. Now that you have done these preliminary steps, you then walk in the way of Christ.
Okay.
If you were a habitual liar, sinner, you fornicated or whatever the
You
case
should
might
stop.
be, you are transformed by Christ, and you now want to walk in the way of Christ. I'm sure you've probably seen like a million videos of people saying, "Oh, I was a criminal."
It's dead? It's gone. All right, take this. I don't want to lose it. Oh, you got, I didn't even see him take it.
Take what?
No, I had a mic on. Continue. Sorry, we still got it on here.
Yes. So, if you're doing all these things,
Sorry.
which are no, that's fine. If you're doing all these things, which are against the commandments of God, and then you are transformed by Christ, the idea is you don't carry on doing those things.
No.
Your life is new now. So, back to Genesis 3:16. Are you going to talk about Abraham being righteous? Is that what you want to talk about?
I was actually going to mention Job.
Okay, go ahead.
Book of Job, and that's different to what I was quoting. Book of Job also says that when he was punished by God or afflicted by God, he had done no wrong, and he was entirely righteous.
Yes, so he had done nothing wrong to be afflicted by Satan.
Okay, but you realize you're adding to the text.
No, that's what it means. Thank you. If you want to talk again, come back to me, right? But show what I said for now, okay?
Bless
All
you,
right?
bro. Bless you. God bless you.
Yeah. There is no indication that
Homie, bandem, homie.
there is no indication, right, that Job was a sinless man. Okay. So what it means is he had done no wrong to deserve what was occurring to him. But you're aware of the story of Job. It's about resilience, all that good stuff.
Sure, yeah. Look, I understand your exegesis of it, and I have no problem with it. But I would need to see what the rabbis say about it, right? What the rabbinical exegesis is.
Rabbinical Judaism is a little bit later than Christianity. They have a slightly different understanding of Christianity than, of the Old Testament, than the Second Temple or First Temple Jewish period do. So you can certainly look at that, but I think you might not receive the Christian understanding of what that text means. Well, that's fine. Go ahead.
And it would just be a case of what do I accept more, the Jewish one or the Christian one, right? Do I accept the Christian one?
The rabbinical Jewish one.
Yeah.
And you may or may not know that the first Christians were obviously Jewish anyway. So Christianity is an extension of Judaism.
Allegedly, yeah.
Well, I mean, unless you believe that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and Paul weren't Jews, then
No. I believe that they were Jewish. Yeah, no problem. But I don't know that they were the people who promulgated the same Christology that you do. I don't believe that these individuals believed in the Trinity. I don't believe that they believed that Jesus was the Son of God.
Paul definitely did. And
Paul definitely did.
And John definitely did.
Whoever John was.
And Peter definitely did.
Who?
Peter definitely did.
Again, with Peter, a lot of his writings, nothing's extant. So how can we really know what Peter believed? You know, I mean, with Paul, even with Paul, a lot of his writings are disputed.
Okay.
So I mean, but I would accept that Paul did believe in vicarious atonement. Maybe, I know a lot of Unitarian Christians would actually reject the idea that Paul was Trinitarian.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you know Will.
Oh yeah,
Will-
Big Willie. Yeah,
Big Willie.
I know Will.
Yeah. So a lot. That's what I mean. There'll be a lot of difference of opinion, and we
That's
obviously would
fine.
believe that the disciples or the Ahl Injil. That's what we believe. Those are the followers of Jesus. We believe that they were obviously people who did not believe in vicarious atonement. They were aware that there would be another prophet to come.
And your proof is?
My proof would be that, first of all, your earliest gospel, pretty much nowhere does it espouse this idea of vicarious atonement, right? It says that Jesus came and he would suffer for the sins of his people. His people. That's the closest you get in Mark, the earliest gospel, to vicarious atonement. Where do we see the majority of it? In the Pauline writings. We don't see very much of it in the Gospels.
That's not true. It's all over the Gospels. It's in Matthew. It's all everywhere in John.
I'm talking about your earliest gospel.
There's a dispute if it's Mark or Matthew, but I mean like it's the same.
Majority say Mark is
okay,
earlier.
fine. But I hope you're willing to accept that these problems do exist within the Quranic context as well. And
we don't believe in different gospels.
Well, you believe in the Injil, which has
Oh yeah. We believe in a Injil, singular.
Yeah, but the gospel message is also singular. Like there aren't 4 different gospel messages.
So why are they called different? Why is Gospel of Mark, Gospel of Luke, Gospel of John?
They're just accounts written by the surviving disciples of Jesus Christ.
I understand.
So
I understand apologetic. Fine, I understand.
But Christians have never held that there are multiple gospels. It's a singular message.
Again, you are kind of speaking for a lot of people.
Can you show me any instance in church history?
Sure,
it was held that there were multiple gospels, as in that there were multiple good newses that Jesus Christ came to spread.
So, I mean, by the very fact that they exist is evidence alone that they believe there were multiple gospels. However, I would say...
Speaking about the 2nd century gospels, like Thomas and all that kind of stuff.
But those are also gospels as well.
Well, no, they're made up stories.
Well, I mean, you say made up stories, but really the veracity of all these books are pretty much on level footing. I mean, hear me out. I'll tell you why.
Right.
So in the Gospel of Thomas, right, or the Gospel of Thomas, let's use that as examples.
Which one? The infancy gospel or just the
infancy
regular
gospel is Gospel of James. That's the Petrevangelium of James. I'm talking about Gospel of Thomas. Yeah, they both have infancy narratives, by the way.
Okay.
All right, so when it comes to the Gospel of Thomas,
yes.
Right, our earliest manuscript for the Gospel of Thomas comes from the same time as the earliest manuscripts of the Synoptic Gospels.
Well, there were manuscripts before that for the Synoptic Gospels because they were copied from somewhere else. But we know in church history that the Gospel of Thomas, which I've read by the way, it's not really like all that weird. The reason it was rejected by the church is because it's clear that it was written in the 2nd century because it contains 2nd century not euphemism but like indicators essentially. Right?
I mean, but so do the Gospels. They have 2nd century euphemisms as well.
They don't. Which one?
Well, okay, here's one. Jesus being the Word of God.
How's that?
That's something that we'll think about it. Why is it none of the other earlier Gospels mention him as the Word of God?
No.
And when was Gospel of John written? 2nd century.
No, 1st century.
Well, and scholars say 110. I'm just going by what scholars say. They say 110. They also say 90.
I think, but that's pushing it to its highest extent essentially.
Yeah, but it's still in there.
In regards to the Logos being a 2nd century euphemism, it's not. It predates Christ.
Oh yeah, I understand that. My point was more towards the idea of why isn't it mentioned by your earlier writers.
The idea that we have in the church is that because John was the oldest living apostle as well as the closest to Jesus Christ, judging by his narrative.
Yeah, by his narrative only.
He had, well, I mean,
no one else calls him the one that Jesus loved.
Again, if I apply that to the Quran, it doesn't work either. Okay?
No, but listen. So no one else calls him the one that Jesus loved, other than himself and John.
But it is the point of their writings to exalt John or Jesus. So the writings are purposeful. Like yes, they could be like extensive. For example, like they could have all written Sirahs, for example, right? Yeah. But that wasn't the point of their mission.
Right.
They wrote letters two churches in parts of the world that they visited, which were later compiled by the church into like a
Paul wrote letters.
Huh?
Paul wrote letters.
Paul wrote letters,
Yeah.
but also all of the accounts of the four Gospels were written by so Matthew and John were Christ's disciples, and then Luke and Mark were the disciples of, I believe, James and Paul respectively.
Well, Luke was a disciple of Paul. You're right.
Yeah,
and Mark was a disciple of Peter.
Peter, effectively, essentially. Yeah. So, like, think about it like the Sahaba and the Tabi'in or whatever.
Yeah,
think about it
the
like
first
like
three
that.
generations.
Yeah, think about it the extra Tabi'in guys, whatever. Think about it like that. So, effectively, they were not trying to A, exalt themselves, or B, write like voluminous understandings of who Christ was. They were trying to get a message across. And it works.
I have no problem with
We're
that.
still here.
No problem.
But, so, like, which point are we tackling now? Is it the point of like being justified before God, or
Can do. I don't even know how we got to the Gospels, to be honest with you.
we jumped there? For
We
something
jumped
like
there, well, I was just going to say when it says, because I only want to say this because Kay mentioned earlier that there's a verse, I think it's in Genesis, where it says that his heel will step on the serpent's head, and apparently that's
man, yeah.
yeah.
But man, but also it's typology of Christ. Yeah.
So you're saying that is a prophecy for Jesus?
It's a
The seed of the woman. The seed of the woman.
So the seed of the woman.
Who's
right,
smoking tree, man?
we're open there. It's fine. So essentially,
I hate the smell. It does.
Yeah, it's something like wet burnt grass or whatever.
Yeah.
It has sort of like a double understanding in that there will be enmity between the son or seed of the woman and and Satan for all eternity, but also because Christ came as a man, it applies to him as well.
Okay, so you do concede this is talking about humanity. The seed of the woman is humanity.
And Christ too, yes.
Okay, yeah. So what that means is, what that verse is saying is that Satan will always hate you, humanity. Humanity will always be hated,
and he will try to deceive us.
Exactly.
But we can triumph over him.
Yes. There you go, David. Yes, we'll triumph over him.
And
that's right.
It also applies to Jesus.
No problem. Yeah, Jesus is a man as well. He also needs to triumph over Satan, and he did when he was tempted for 40 days.
Are you sure you're a Christian? Sorry, are you sure you're a Muslim? Sorry.
Why?
You seem to like. Well, are you Sunni?
Yeah, I'm Sunni. Yeah.
Okay, you seem to be a little bit less like ignorant than the Sunnis.
My master's was in theology and religious studies.
Okay, that's fine. Fair enough.
Yeah. So
because the Sunnis, okay, that's fine. Carry
Sunnis
on.
don't usually. Wait, Sunnis what? Well, Sunnis what? Say
Huh?
What do Sunnis do?
They just like they instantly refuse to understand something. So it's like
like what you speaking to my brother here.
Yeah. So like for example, if you it's like a side note. Forgive me for this, but essentially like if we look at like the Quran and we go to like 931 and it talks about like taking the lords and their priests as gods, Christ, right?
Yeah.
I can understand when Muslims say no, that's not what it means. It means that they took like Christ and the priests and the lords.
Yeah,
besides, I can get that, but also I can see that the text says something else, right? So I can tell them I get what you're saying, but I don't agree with it because the text is otherwise. But for them,
so you would interpret it the way that
it's translated in English.
Yeah.
But for them, when I try to explain anything,
got you.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
3 gods. Yada. But that's fine.
No, I understand your beliefs 100%. I understand them.
That's fine.
What my contention is this.
Something like you don't get it, man.
No, I know.
Annoying.
I know. It is boring, isn't it? It's a bit boring. It just kind of and it just goes nowhere.
Oh yeah, whatever. Yeah.
My issue is this. I don't believe the New Testament is a reflection of what we have in the Old Testament. Right? I believe that the Old Testament is antithetical to the New Testament.
But you see, if it was exactly the same, there'd be no need for it to be called new.
No, I get that.
Right.
But what you would expect from the Old Testament is to see some sort of indication of these things happening in the New, i.e., you would expect to see somewhere mentioned that the Messiah is supposed to die and he's going to vicariously atone for everyone's sins. And then after 3 days, he's going to resurrect. You'd expect to see something in there.
Okay.
So, but we don't find that.
So, for example, do you believe that Muhammad is this is like a parallel. Do you believe that Muhammad is in the Torah and the Injil? Like it says in Surah 7:157. Do you believe in that?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you try and like look for him in the songs or in Isaiah or whatever the case might be, right? Does it tell you that he'll be born in the year 570? That he'll
I said Tahrir. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Siraj, man, you gotta love him.
Got a lot of the boy.
Yeah.
Does it tell you? I That's fine.
No. I'm not saying anything wrong. It's best we have a Jew in this conversation. What do you think?
A what?
Should we get a Jew in this conversation? Because we're going to be discussing Old Testament.
whatever you like, but I don't know if it will help at all. But sure.
Well, look, if the New Testament is right, and it is truly, the Old Testament does truly speak about Jesus, then you'll wipe the floor with us. You wipe the floor with us, right? Brother.
So what?
Cousin.
Oh, David.
David, yeah? Okay, good. Yeah. Go on. What do you
Well, I think he's a rabbinical Jew, so he probably won't agree with any of the interpretations, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's even familiar with them, but whatever. Anywho,
go on. Yeah. So I don't believe that Jesus fulfills anything in the Old Testament.
Okay. So then, when you look for Muhammad, right?
Yes.
In the songs or in Deuteronomy or in Isaiah, right?
Yeah.
Does it tell you that he'll be born in Arabia, that his dad will die before he's born, and he'll be born in 570, that he will worship God for 40 years, and then suddenly Gabriel will appear to him in a hero cave? Does it say any of that stuff? No.
I know.
So,
it does allude.
But there's very specific instances that tell you about the trials that Christ will go through.
Okay, give us
Isaiah.
now let's get the example. True. Yeah.
Which is fine, but
so what would you present, David? What would you present?
The point one second. The point remains, right, that if we try and parallel this to the idea that Muhammad is in the Torah or even in the Gospels, even like you will not find any excessive detail about Muhammad's life in those books.
They'll argue the same, but Jewish people could argue about Jesus being in the Tanakh, the Christian Jesus being in the
And I can make the case that those apply to Christ in the context of Christ, right? I can make the case that those prophecies apply to Christ and they were fulfilled by Christ. But when it comes to the Jews, so when it comes to Muhammad,
but a Jewish person would say the same thing about Jesus and Muhammad.
But have you seen the instances where Muhammad is talked about within the Bible, right? It's in love songs and when God talking about himself. So they're much weaker for Muhammad than they are even for Jesus Christ.
I mean, that's your opinion.
So I'm surprised that you take what is there about Muhammad supposedly as like gospel.
And by the way, I never made the claim that I did.
No, but he's there somewhere, right?
Well, remember, you got to remember, I believe in tahrif. I believe in corruption.
Please explain tahrif to me.
Tahrif means that there were things in the in Tanakh, right? And in the Injil, more so in the Injil, that were changed, corrupted, misinterpreted,
only one
removed.
Problem.
Yeah, go on.
How can you prove that they were removed specifically to remove Muhammad?
I'll tell you why. Because the Jewish people believed that it should always be them, right? So there was those people who were supposed to be preserving those texts. They would, and you got to think about it logically, right?
Okay.
They want it always to be about the Jews, the Jewish people, right? I love them. Obviously, they're my cousins, without any doubt, right? They're our cousins, right? Because we come from Ishmael, they come from Isaac, right? So they don't want it to have ever been us.
Say otherwise.
How do you say what? That we're not cousins? We're cousins.
Well. Okay. I'll get to the Ishmael point later, but
no, but we are cousins. Do you agree that we're cousins?
I don't know about that.
Are we not from the Ishmaelites? The Arabs? Are we not from the Ishmaelites?
Apparently, there's a hadith I can show you that says that Ishmael went to a people, joined them, and they taught him Arabic.
Sure.
So,
I know. You have to show me that.
So it appears that Ishmael wasn't an Arab, but he was instead inserted into the Arabs.
Yeah. You'll have to show me that.
Sure thing.
You have to show me.
I will for you.
Yeah.
But sorry, how long were we going? Yeah. Sorry. Carry on what you were saying.
Yeah. I was just while you find that.
So we were talking about about the Jews taking Muhammad out of the Torah, and I guess the Christians taking him out of the Injil or whatever. When did this happen, and why would it happen? Surely it would have to happen after Muhammad came, not before.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So obviously we have in 70 AD, we have the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem, right, by the Romans. They slaughtered 1 million Jews, right? And so among those people who were slaughtered, according to Josephus, unless you don't accept Josephus.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. Yes or no?
1 million seems excessive.
It's mentioned 1 million. It could be wrong. Maybe he's wrong. But
sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it does sound like a lot.
Sounds like okay, whatever.
Yeah, 1 million. 1 million they killed.
Okay, fair enough. Well.
Again, that's according to Josephus.
Have you got a link for that anywhere?
You can just look it up.
I'm getting you something else right now.
I know. We can. Guys, Josephus, the Jewish wars. Listen, Jewish wars. Josephus. 1 million Jews were killed by the Romans, right?
I don't know. Is that right?
I'm not saying it did happen. I'm just saying, doesn't Josephus say that?
I've been speaking out of ignorance because I don't know the specific.
About Ishmael joining. Yes.
Yes,
So,
what?
yes. So essentially, when was it done? The temple was destroyed in 70 AD.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I'm trying to hard right now.
I know.
thinking-
You're trying to multitask.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'll speak slowly so you can still kind of hear me.
No, it's fine. I go. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, of course,
That's a bit annoying.
Of course. So we believe, obviously, in that destruction. What else was destroyed? We also believe that the community of Ahl Injil were also destroyed. However, we do believe some of them managed to escape and make their way to the Arabian Peninsula. How do we know that? Waraqa bin Naufal. Waraqa bin Naufal was Khadija's uncle, and he was the one that used to write in Hebrew the Injil. But hang on a minute, we don't have any man.
Hundreds of years.
I'm going to tell you now. I understand. But you got to remember, Ahl Injil, their tradition, we believe, lasted in the Arabian Peninsula for hundreds of years. They couldn't survive in Europe and in the other places in the Middle East because they'd be slaughtered by the the Trinitarians and those who believe Jesus died for their sins, right? So they were in
Wait
danger.
a second. Wait. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Where did you have Europeans and Trinitarians hunting Jews in the first 6 centuries?
Jews weren't even allowed to worship in Jerusalem for the longest time under the Byzantine Empire.
In the first 6 centuries.
Yeah.
Where did you get this from?
You can read the Byzantine emperors. They all persecuted the Jews. All the Byzantine emperors. They didn't even allow them to celebrate the Passover. In fact, they made Easter supersede Passover. So they put Easter on top of it. And no one was allowed to do the
That
Passover.
was only after the 300s. What about like the year 100 and the year 200?
Well, you got to remember, Christians didn't have the power at that time. They don't have the power till post 300s.
So who was persecuting Jews in Europe and in the Middle East?
Well, obviously,
in the first 2 centuries.
I'll tell you now. So the Byzantines, were.
But why?
Because the Byzantines accused them of the crime of deicide, which means killing God.
But the Byzantines were not Christian in the first 2 centuries.
No. What are you saying?
So you're saying that an emperor of the Byzantines,
Many emperors.
after the 300s,
Yeah, after the 300s,
when
after
Christianity was after 313 or whatever, right? Or actually he died in 381, whatever.
Yeah, around there.
After him, supposedly,
4th century.
they started to persecute Jews. But I asked you in the first 2 centuries, who was doing that?
So the first
In
2
Europe
centuries,
and in Arabia.
Yeah. You got to remember, the first 2 centuries, Christians didn't have the power. It was still the Roman Empire.
So why were the Romans, who weren't Christians, in the first, I guess, 2 centuries actually, persecuting Jews?
Well, they annihilated the Jews in 70 AD. So and then they killed them in the Bar Kokhba revolt in 1890 AD. So I mean, the Romans had a very interesting relationship with the Jews. They allowed them to do their thing, right? So long as they didn't step on any toes. But as soon as they did, crush.
The Romans had that policy with everybody, with the Germanic. Who did the Romans ever allow? They destroyed Carthage. We're going off board, but
it all connects.
The Romans never allowed anybody to challenge their power.
To try and what?
To challenge their power.
Of course.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Not the Britons, the Germanic tribes, not Boudica.
Of course.
Nobody.
That's right.
So you're making it sound as though like there was a special case with the Jews.
Yeah, there was kind of.
How so?
Well, there was more of it, almost like there was a pact. It's called Pax something, Pax Judaica or something. But it was one of their. It was basically a pact that these people are different. They are the Jews. And remember, there was a lot more Jews back then in terms of like proportions, right? Obviously, today in the world there's a lot less, right? But how things worked back then, they were still a sizable minority, sizable. So obviously the Romans conceded that we have to allow these guys to worship, but at the same time, you render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. You give to Caesar what is his. You pay that tax.
That's been the case for everybody.
I know that's not always been the case because that's why they killed the Jewish people.
No, that has always been the case. Has always been the case.
Yes, I agree. We're saying the same thing here.
No, we're not, because you're making it sound.
You know how to put that back on? It stays and stops.
What's happening?
It said the recording stopped, movie recording stopped or something like that.
It's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, please get
We're
it,
wrapping
yeah.
up now anyway. So.
Are we?
Okay,
I thought there was like a main point you wanted to reach here.
Oh yeah. I was just kind of saying that Waraqa bin Naufal, right? He was part of that tradition, that Ahl Injil tradition, that survived in the Arabian Peninsula for hundreds of years. And that's why then the Prophet ﷺ received revelation, he knew straight away. Because that's what the real Injil said. What did it say in the Hadith? It said he used to write the Injil in Hebrew. And we know...
the Injil was never in Hebrew.
Okay, listen.
At least in the beginning at least.
No problem. Papias, very early church father, he says that the earliest gospel, the Gospel of Matthew, he says it used to be in Hebrew. God knows what the Gospel of Matthew said in Hebrew, but we believe whatever it was made its way to the Arabian Peninsula from those people who survived the Roman destruction, right? And that's why Waraqa bin Naufal knew he was a prophet and said it straight away, because that's what he had left of the Injil. It said there would be someone coming, right, in that area, right? And that's obviously But do we have it today? No, we don't. We don't. Right?
That is quite the conspiracy.
But it's a conspiracy based on our hadiths. It's based on our hadiths.
Yeah, but the hadiths are very faulty in that they contradict very frequently.
Well, I don't know about that.
Does Allah have two right hands or a right hand and a left hand? Because they both say the same thing.
I don't know. Which one's more authentic?
They're both Sahih grades. Is there grades of Sahih?
You have to show me. And yes, there are. There are.
What are the grades of Sahih?
Mutawatir and Hadith Qudsi.
Ooh, there's very few Mutawatir. Okay.
Well, I mean, there was actually a very good book that you can read. It's actually, so the Saudi Ministry of Religious Affairs, they put together a book, and it's all of the Mutawatir hadiths that we have. It's about 400 hadiths.
It's a very long hadith, right? But that's the Arabic portion. You can read from the very beginning if you so like.
Just show me the
you
left.
can have a picture.
No, just show me the left one.
Okay, all right. So no. This is Ishmael learning Arabic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I can bring you the book from my hands afterwards if you want.
Right, yes. We used to love to enjoy from the people, so they settled there, and later on they sent to the families who came and settled with them, so that the family became permanent residents there. Grew up and learned Arabic. The child Ismail grew up and learned Arabic from them, and his virtues caused them to love and admire.
Okay, that's fine. Yes.
So wouldn't that mean that Ishmael isn't the father of the Arabs, or he's a father?
Well, he married into them, so they'll become Ishmaelites. He married into them.
But that's not how it works. You don't marry into a tribe and they become you.
Sure, there may be a contingent of Arabs that aren't from Ishmael, but you have to consider there are, especially if he married from them.
But Ishmael is called the father of the Arabs, as like the progenitor.
Yeah.
It's the same way that, for example, Israel or Jacob is the progenitor of the Israelites.
Yes.
He didn't marry into an Israelite tribe and become the progenitor.
Yes.
So this would mean that Ishmael wasn't Arabic.
No problem. But then you have to prove that the Ishmaelites didn't overtake these initial Arabs. And you also need to contend with another thing.
Okay.
Why is it that Arabic and Hebrew are so similar?
Because Arabic borrows from Hebrew.
Why are they similar?
No, but you see, that's an issue. Yes, it does borrow from Hebrew.
No.
Okay, all right, 2 points. Pause. I'll come to you in a second.
You understand?
Sorry. So, are you implying that Abraham spoke Hebrew?
I don't know if it was Hebrew.
Okay.
It may have been it was a Semitic language.
Okay.
Surely.
So
and Arabic is a Semitic language, you know.
Well, there are many Semitic languages. Hebrew.
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
Hebrew comes later than Abraham, later than Isaac, later than Ishmael.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're implying that the similitude between Arabic and Hebrew comes from a progenitor like Ishmael, who spoke Hebrew and then therefore was able to translate it into Arabic or something, that would be incorrect.
I would say this. Ismail moving to the Arabs in Mecca, right? This was an opportunity for him to take all that he had learned from his father, and he, injected it into those people, married from those people, and his progeny are from those people.
Well, that's possible, but the language portion is the part I don't agree with.
Okay, remember,
Hebrew
what did you just
like,
say? You said Hebrew comes later. Fine.
Yes.
Yeah, fine, no problem.
So that link you were trying to establish between why Arabic and Hebrew sound similar.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, organically they would have grown together.
If I have it right, are you assuming that link comes from Ishmael?
Of course.
So I'm telling you that he didn't speak Hebrew. So now what?
Well, he spoke something Semitic. We're just using kind of titles, Arabic and Hebrew. He spoke a Semitic language that the fruition was what became Hebrew, what became Arabic. That's what I'm saying. That's the point I'm making. That point doesn't negate the fact that we come from Ishmael and we're Ishmaelites, right?
I think it does.
It's language and lineage are two completely different things. Languages can be learned, they can be changed, they can be molded, they can be amalgams of other things.
But Ishmael can't be called the father of the Arabs. He can't, because the Arabs existed before he got
that's
there.
probably a poor title, right? Maybe we wouldn't say that, but we would say
I bet he's a Arabic.
I concede that.
Ancestor, at best.
I concede.
Now, how do you then jump the gun and claim that we or you are you Qurayshi Arabic? Do you even know?
Well, that's what we would say. We would say the Qurayshi Arabs. They're the ones who came from the Ishmaelites.
That's what Hadith says as well.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so that's what I meant. Sorry, I misspoke.
So, are you Quraysh?
I could be. I don't know. I could be Qurayshi. I don't know.
Okay, when you said we, I was thinking that you knew.
When we say that, when we say that, I just mean generally. Like,
Okay.
remember, what is an Arab according to us? An Arab is someone who speaks Arabic.
Yeah, so it's more of a culture rather
That's
than
right.
anything. Yeah.
So we believe, huh?
Oh,
you-
okay. Well,
Are you Christian? Are you what? MashaAllah. What's up?
There's people that speak Arabic, they know Arabic.
No. But the hadith says if you are an Arabic speaker, this is a condition for you to be called an Arab. So hadith says this. That's what I'm saying.
you can bring it out now.
Yeah, I'll bring
So
the.
if I go learn Arabic now,
You become an Arab. You become an Arab.
even though I was born in Gambia,
This is what the hadith says. This is what the hadith says. That's it.
Well, if you think about Arabic as an ethnicity, right, you can actually ever transform into like this.
No,
guy,
I didn't
for
say-
example,
I didn't
right?
say you transform.
But if you like, I don't know, take on part of the culture, then maybe you can be counted as. Well, that's what I think it means basically. It doesn't mean that you suddenly stop being Gambian and you stop being Arab.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay, you're one of us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. That's what
Okay.
I was saying. Yeah.
So-
you're gone.
All right.
I
So
don't even know where we were.
we said many things here.
Yes.
But essentially, that same kind of veracity that you apply to the Bible, when it's applied to the Quran, the Sirahs, and the Hadith, you run into the similar issues. So are you willing to accept it when you have a contradiction like the left hand, right hand? Which I can get you if you want.
I've not seen the left hand, right hand yet.
Yeah, me neither actually. That's what told me it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So does Allah have two right hands, or does he have a left and a right hand? So the idea is that, like, in Judgment Day, he will fold. He will have the wall on his right hand and then fold it onto his left, or something like that. Or whatever the hell that means.
I don't know. I think what.
Allahu A'lam. There's no knowledge, there's no information about whether it's two right hands or left hands. Not
Well,
that we know.
so it says both. So which one is it?
What we say is this. I'll tell you what we say. And he is right. We don't affirm.
aware, I'm
Yeah,
aware.
you don't understand
I'm
because
aware.
We affirm the attribute, but we don't explain it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I do, but he doesn't.
Yeah, yeah,
However,
If you do, I want to
but we're
see
still
you do that.
we are still similar. We are still
Got
similar.
it, got it.
And
Some-
I do agree with him to a certain extent.
Some Christians say only God knows all the time for everything.
Yeah.
Some bother to explain
Yeah.
things. So
If I say Allah has a hand, then we say yes, he has a hand in a way that befits his majesty. And that's, you would agree, and we affirm that.
But since we have human language,
Yes.
and we understand that a hand is a certain thing,
Sure.
why would Allah use the word hand and not something else?
Why wouldn't he? Because he's delivering it to humans, isn't he?
Okay.
He's delivering the revelation to humans.
But because, do you believe in the eternal Quran or in a created Quran? Where do you fall on?
Oh
on
no,
the-
I'm not Mu'tazila. I'm not Mu'tazila.
So where do you fall on spectrum?
It's the revealed word of God.
So is it eternal or is it not eternal?
Kalam Allah is eternal. Kalam Allah.
Okay.
Right? But
But the
The-
recitation
it's
and
just- yeah, the
the
Mus'haf
writings
is
and
just-
the Mus'haf is
it's created. The Muslim he created.
Okay.
He created the Quran.
Fair enough. So the uncreated kalam, right? Allah had all eternity to think about that, right? And the best he came up with was a hand, which most human beings were confused with the hand of a human being.
It's a what? No, but here's the problem. It's a fallacy. It's a whataboutism. You're giving a whataboutism fallacy. A bit.
Yeah.
No, it's
A bit.
It's not a what about it.
Kind of is.
No, so
No, I'll tell you why.
because
let me
in
just one thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
one thing. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why it is, right? Because you're presupposing, right, what God should have done, right? You're saying, oh, he should have done this,
you
but he
did the
didn't.
same thing for the Gospels.
How so?
You were saying that that they have contradictory messages, right?
Yeah.
And if it's the inspired word of God, then it should all be consistent.
No.
God blind.
Sorry?
God blind.
I don't believe he is.
But
Do
God
you?
see.
Huh?
Can God see?
Yes, sure.
Can we see?
Sure we can.
Can we see like God?
No, because it says
Can
in
we
the
see 8
Bible
billion
that God
people at the
sees
same
the
time?
end from the beginning. What else you got for me?
There you go.
Yeah,
No,
So
but
we
you
believe the same
see,
thing.
you
We
see.
affirm the
No,
attributes of Allah
but
the
you
same
see,
way.
you see,
Place the
within
community
Christianity,
shape.
There you are.
There's nothing like him to
is
it.
that right?
Yeah, you're saying there's, in the Quran it says there's nothing like unto
We
him.
affirm
Like
what
it
he
does in the
affirmed
Bible, yes,
himself.
yes, sure.
Yeah.
It's not yours. Our
Totally.
eyesight is
All right.
limited.
Same
So-
God, same God,
Huh?
same God. So you'd expect it to be the same.
That's very arguable.
Well,
This is the same God.
we believe in the same God.
Well,
Not the, we don't,
that
hang on, but
must-
we don't believe in the same God as the Christians.
So,
We do believe in the same God as the Jews.
the God of the Jews is called Father. Is Allah
He's
your,
called many things.
Is Allah your father?
He's called many things.
He's called a mighty man of war.
called
Is
many
Allah a
things.
mighty man of war?
Allah wants us to go to war if we need to, yeah.
No, is Allah himself a mighty man of war?
I don't know that we would use that language,
Okay.
but again, remember, we believe in tahrif, we
Is
believe
your,
in corruption.
is your father? No, your father.
I don't know about
mean-
Father.
did he
mean
We have Adonai, we have Yahweh,
Okay.
we have Allah,
Okay.
we have Elohim,
All right.
we have Ilah.
Do you believe
They
that,
all sound like Allah, no?
do you
A lot of them do.
Do you believe in the spirits?
I don't know. We'd call it a spirit.
Okay.
I don't know.
But the Jews call
but
it
we
spirit.
believe Ruh al-Qudus.
Okay.
We believe in that.
Yeah.
But that's
and they believe
Jibreel.
in Ruh Elohim.
That's
Same-
right.
Same thing.
So, but we believe that's an angel.
Huh?
We believe that's Jibreel.
Yeah, but there's a problem with that because.
For you?
Well, I mean, so do you believe that Jibril impregnated Mary?
No, we believe that. No, we,
Have you read Surah 19? The language that sounds very like.
Yes,
so-
according to what you
talking about Farsh. You talking about Farsh?
No. Just the way it talks about that, he appeared to her in the form of a well-proportioned man. She was afraid of him.
No. Go to the Arabic.
Go to Arabic.
He didn't say what proportion.
You speak Arabic?
No, but he didn't. Even the.
So
what
why
they
do
say?
the translators
فأرسلنا
who know both
إليها
English and
روحنا.
Arabic?
روحنا. We sent to her our ruh. Ruhun Amin.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking
Ruhun
about.
Amin is the true spirit.
The
This is
spirit
Jibreel,
in the form
who
of
sends
a
the
well-proportioned
message of
man.
Allah to all his prophets.
I don't think Jibril is identified as being the spirit in the Quran.
Ruhun Amin is Jibreel.
That's our understanding.
That's it.
Yeah, but where'd you get that from?
Ibn
In the
Abbas.
Quran says it.
So,
And the scholars
so
in
basically,
Tafsir.
a dude said it.
Ibn Abbas, who was literally taught the Quran by the Prophet ﷺ, and he had the best understanding of the Quran. And the hadith is Sahih that mentions what he's talking about.
Okay, and Allah didn't think to clear this up, no?
Say again?
Allah didn't clear this up in the Quran,
He,
right?
did.
Allah
He
did
gave
it?
us the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ explains to us the Quran.
Is there a hadith where the Prophet says that Gabriel is the Ruh?
Yes,
Where-
that's where Ibn Abbas gets it from. Ibn Abbas is learning the tafsir, he's learning the exegesis of the Quran from the one that it was taught to.
Can you pull that out just so I can see?
Say again?
Can you find out so I can see it? Or
It's in Tafsir Ibn Kathir.
Let me even get a verse.
all right, well, if you can find me Tafsir Ibn Kathir,
I'll get you a
where-
verse where Jibril.
Why, man?
forget about it, man. Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it.
I want to ask you a question.
Go
David.
ahead.
I want to ask you a question. Where do you think, or what do you think, is the best verse, or sorry, the best prophecy for Jesus in the Old Testament? Which one do you think this is talking
The
about
best
Jesus?
one?
The one that this is, there is no if, ands, or buts. This is Jesus. Give me your best one.
The best. I mean, I don't know if I rank them.
I mean, just one that you say, there's no way Obi can refute this. No way it can be refuted. Irrefutable. I can think of a few that you might use.
A lot. Irrefutable, you say.
Irrefutable.
I don't. Even if it said Jesus Christ in it, you still find a way to present it.
No. If it's clear, it's clear.
Wait. So, is your position that you don't believe that he's in the Old Testament?
I don't believe it's the Old Testament.
At all?
At all. He's a failed Messiah.
Interesting.
He's
so,
failed.
All of the scripture that point to him point to who?
Not literally because of no, it's pointing to a Messiah that he is not. Yeah, I don't believe that he fulfills anything.
So, there's going to be another Messiah coming.
I didn't say that. I believe in Isa ibn Maryam, that he's a Messiah. I
Wait,
believe in that.
okay.
But I believe in that because of the Quran, not your scripture.
But who is all of those typologies and those scriptures pointing to? Like who
So
is?
let me give me an example. That's what I'm asking for. Give me an
Okay.
example.
So for example, when it talks about in the Psalms about like how the Lord could.
Go on. Go on. I want everyone.
You hear?
Yeah, I want everyone listening to what he's about to say. Go on.
So in the Psalms, when it talks about like how the Lord can calm the seas, and you see Jesus Christ doing the same thing in the New Testament.
Yeah.
Is that talking about just God alone, or is that a prophecy for the Messiah to come?
I mean, that's talking about God, and then what the New Testament writers have done is they've made up the story to make it comport with Old Testament.
Made up which story?
The story of
calming
him
the storm?
calming the storm. Yeah.
Oh, that's made up.
Yeah. It would be easy. I would do that. If I was the New Testament writer, I would do the same thing.
So wait. So that's made up, right? Yeah. But we both believe in the virgin birth. So how is that made up? Another virgin birth? Like, which criteria would you use?
So, good question. My
Okay.
criteria would be the Quran. The Quran says that the
That's
virgin
circular.
birth took place. That's fine. But remember, I'm not a Christian or a Jew.
Okay.
Which means I'm not shackled to the Torah and your scriptures. I'm not shackled to that.
All right.
My proof.
Maybe you should be a little bit.
Yeah, well,
It's helpful.
my proof text is the Quran.
Okay.
If the Quran says there was a virgin birth, then I affirm it.
And you believe in the Quran just because, or you believe that it's the word of
It's
like,
the word of God.
It's a belief essentially.
Well, everything's a belief. Everything's a
Believe
belief.
that's tested.
Huh?
Tested.
Yeah.
Of course
By who?
By us.
By people, the people.
By the people it's revealed to.
Are you Christian, bro?
If someone comes to you and tells you
That-
a story of events that happened, then
Still
you test
deciding,
it.
yeah?
There's a way of testing it to make sure that the story most likely is true or not.
So
If the Quran contains
I don't really agree with
things
it.
in
Okay.
it that are truthful,
So I can even
scientific
tell you-
evidence. If If the Quran contains
There-
linguistic evidence,
There is.
if the Quran,
is not for
there's no
a
scientific
believing-
evidence
a believing
about
woman
expanding the universe.
and a man.
There's no expert.
Because
when
the
when Allah
Bible
and the
says
messenger
something
decree
similar in
a message,
Isaiah,
the
but
Bible
I wouldn't use that.
What verse in the Bible
Huh?
said that
In
we
Isaiah,
created
when it talks about the word spreading
for
out
you,
the heavens,
what's the problem with
like
that for you?
I wouldn't
spreading out the
out
heaven
the
and
heavens.
expanding is different.
as if it's
You could
at
say
The
level
earth
of
is
Allah.
spread out.
Okay, I see. Oh, I
Doesn't
see your
mean
point.
the earth is
The earth
expanded.
isn't spread
We would
out,
say-
unless you
we
believe
would
it's spread
say
like a mat.
this, that
So it's not spread out.
Allah
Spread out
revealed
for
His
walking
words
it.
to someone,
That's why it's
right?
spread out.
Just like how He revealed His words to
then
Moses.
the universe expanded so
Now,
that
if He
it can fit
reveals
fit
His
Earth
words
and
to
assets.
someone,
So you can change that how
then
you
that
want,
person
right?
understands those words
We
better than
created
anyone
every
else.
single living thing from
Right?
water.
Not
The
Adam.
people can't see Allah,
Not Adam.
right?
What's
Because
the
He's
human
Allah.
cells made of?
Right?
Adam
That's why
was made
Allah
from water.
chooses
What's the
one
human cells
What was
made
Adam
of?
made from?
That person conveys the message.
There you go.
Right?
Water.
So when Allah says obey Allah
Human
Show
cells
me
and obey
where
the
it
messenger,
says Adam was made
it's
from
because
water.
you
Show me
wouldn't
that.
know the message
Every
without the
Adam is made
messenger.
from black clay.
The messenger
living thing.
explains the
Is
revelation.
Adam a living
That's what I'm
thing?
saying.
Yes.
Doesn't put him on the
Okay.
same
But,
level. There's many verses that say that.
Adam is
That
described
Allah-
as being made
Muhammad
from
is
clay.
just a man.
So
He's just a
how
man.
can Adam be made from
Not
clay?
Come over here,
clay
come over
only.
What else?
But we're not only made from clay.
Show me. Show me.
Allah-
Show me. Wait, Obi, you done? You done?
Yeah, you guys continue.
Okay.
Wrap up. I don't.
Oh, wrap up.
I have been talking. Okay, I have been talking now for like 2 hours. Obi, do your wrap up.
Yeah, I was just.
Give me the mic. Give me the mic.
I like him. He's good. Good guy. All right. So yeah, just it was a good conversation between myself and David.
Dawood.
Dawood, yeah.
Ibn
That's
Dawood, that's
Or
me.
David. I would say that it was a good conversation. I think still, I don't believe there are any prophecies in the Old Testament that speak about Jesus. I believe that He is a false Messiah. According to according to the
Wouldn't that mean that the Quran is wrong?
no. Remember what I said before. I'm not shackled to the Old Testament. I believe He's a Messiah.
Well, you have to
because
be.
no, wait. I'm not.
Okay, so sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
fine.
I believe. Yeah, I am. We talked about that earlier. All right. So when it comes to obviously your Messiah, how He's portrayed in the New Testament, I don't believe in Him because I believe that person who's described in the New Testament, fails everything in the Old Testament. I believe He's a Messiah based on the Quran, not based on anything else. That's my position. You want to do a wrap up? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, appreciate it, Obi. We talked about
Obi, we love you, Obi.
Of course.
Yes.
Like and subscribe.
we talked about a whole bunch of stuff.
We did.
But the Quran provides no rationale as to why Jesus Christ is the Messiah. So, if you believe Jesus Christ is the Messiah from the Quran, what does that mean exactly? Nothing. So effectively, you're going to have to shackle yourself, like he said, to the Old Testament, and understand what a Messiah means, what a Messiah's mission is, and how all that's fulfilled within Christ.
Right out.
There you go. That's what I got.
Any message to the family on Easter
Oh my
Sunday?
God! Have a blessed Easter, people, and carry on believing in Christ. So hold fast to Christ. He is the resurrection, the life and the resurrection. And without Him, there is no hope of achieving eternal life. Muhammad can't give it to you. Allah can't give it to you. Only Christ can.
Amen.
All right. Amen.
Praise the Lord.
Amen. Yeah. I've been talking for 3 hours, I think. Okay, fine.